Jag minns ju den tid du gav mig life-bilder, yo. Nu vill jag kunna ge tillbaka allt jag inte kunnat ge förut. Det finns ingen annan där som kan stå här by my side, oh why. Sättet du rör på det får mig att dö för dig, baby. För de här yardis, de vill ju bara dra ner oss. Men du är fett och vanlig. Och det jag lägger av min tid, jag vill ha dig. Du får mig känna safety. Vi kan nog leda, baby. Och jag kommer aldrig ändra mig. Aldrig.
All right, greetings. We're live, y'all.
Peace, morning. What's up?
Yeah, man.
Good morning.
How y'all doing? What's going on, Baba?
Everything is great here in Orangeburg, man. The weather's a little cold, but we're all right. And man, hopefully we're gonna have a good episode here today, man.
Yeah.
A lot of things is happening here in the Berg. This Tuesday, Dominique and myself, we're gonna talk to some of these young students here at HKT.
Yeah, I'm one of my old stomping grounds.
Yeah, we're gonna chop it up with Dr. Curry. Everything is in motion, man. I know you got some things going on over there with the with the Mali school, and you can talk about that a little bit. But yeah, man, everything is going good here in Orangeburg.
Yeah, man, that's good, man. I'm glad to see you and Dom out there, boots on the ground, from place to place now together, because y'all gonna just blow people's minds away immediately once they realize the amount of information you two brains got. They're gonna say, man, this is in Orangeburg.
Yeah,
I'm gonna talk to them people, so it's powerful that we're now reaching out to the grassroots and delivering the message in person. I definitely salute y'all for that. Like you said, the Mali Center here, we've been actually planning. We was able to raise enough money, the amount of $500 to rent an office for a year.
Okay.
Back in October, but we're not opening the office until January 1st. And so we chose to take from October to January 1st to develop our curriculum, and we came up with a 12-month Pan-African education and leadership training program. It's going to be real dope. Some of it will be available on Patreon for those who want to participate online, and then we'll have what we're doing here on the ground with the actual people in the community. So it's going to be levels and layers of education happening. I'm gonna need y'all, so I'll be calling on y'all as well.
All right.
But yeah, we also got another announcement before we bring out our guests. The official first annual Orangeburg Gullah Geechee Heritage Festival is on the way.
Yeah.
Yes. We will be bringing our people out to the Edisto Memorial Gardens in Orangeburg, South Carolina on March 22nd, 2025. This is very significant, and while we have the opportunity before we bring out our guests, I just want to emphasize that significance. As you know, myself and Baba Kimo, we initiated what we call the Orangeburg Gullah Geechee Heritage Project 3 years ago now. And our goal was to dig through the records, dig through our own family genealogy, dig through the history, and have a better understanding of the Gullah Geechee heritage that exists within Orangeburg County. Most people would say it doesn't exist in Orangeburg. But if you know the history of South Carolina and how families move and how culture is exchanged, you realize how stupid that is when you know where Orangeburg is located and how big it used to be. It just doesn't make sense for people to try to say Orangeburg people are not part of the Gullah Geechee community and culture. So we've been able to prove it without a doubt. We've been able to go get the facts, find ancestors, find descendants, find cousins in Africa. We've been able to go through the whole process of putting Orangeburg on the map as a definite location where Gullah Geechee ancestors existed within freedmen communities, and even before that on plantations.
Yeah.
And so, we find it without a doubt. And Dom is our number one researcher. Dom is in the record. So
always.
We got a powerful team here. And I think that goes right into it. What you can look for at this festival is family. You can look for some good music, some entertainment. You know, it's going to be a day of honoring that legacy and also announcing it, because a lot of people don't know it exists. So you can look forward to Baba Kimo. Baba Kimo will be there live and direct, giving the local Orangeburg history and the Gullah Geechee connection. And he'll be sharing with you aspects of our own shared lineage that goes all the way back to Africa and things like that. So it's very important that people come out and realize it, because every single one of you have an African ancestry. If you're a black person in the United States of America, particularly Orangeburg, South Carolina, we probably kinfolk one way or the other. If we ain't direct bloodline, we probably share bloodline, share cousins, or stuff like that. So we are the blackest county in South Carolina, with the 5th blackest city in the United States of America. Small, 2 HBCUs. We have a live and thriving history that we need to resurrect and bring forward. So the Orangeburg Gullah Geechee Heritage Festival, mark your calendars, March 22nd. We'll be live and direct at Edisto Gardens, and Baba Kimo will be your honorable host, and we're going to have a great time. We'll be reaching out to some of you who we guarantee will be watching this to get you involved. We're looking for partners, sponsors. We're looking for as much support from the community as possible to make it happen, because, of course, even though we're the Gullah Nation of North America and this is our project, this is a community venture. We want to bring the different elements to the forefront to celebrate and commemorate this part of who we are. So, don't be shy. We'll be reaching out. And I think that kind of segues right into who we have here today.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Like you said, Chief, it is a day of celebration, and that's what we're going to celebrate. We're going to celebrate our Gullah heritage, our African heritage, and that's what we're all about here in Orangeburg. And our guest today, he is a part of that. He's going to tell you his connection to Mama Africa. He's going to tell you his lineage, and that's what we talk about all the time: lineage restoration. Lineage restoration. That's what I'm all about. That's what Chief is all about. That's what Dominic is all about. So let's do it.
All right.
Yeah, man. So it helps. It helps for our people to see this. It helps for our fans, the people who follow us, the people who's gaining knowledge, information from us, whether today or at a later time, to be able to see that it's not an isolated incident. That we're not just talking about the lineages that we have and that we're researching, but there's other people out there who've also on their own journeys. They've been called home as well. The ancestors have called their lineages home. His brother has been to his roots. He knows exactly who he is. Exactly. There's no absolute doubt about who this brother is. He's been home. He's been recognized. He's been honored. He's been coronated. He's a leader where his ancestry is from in Africa right now. And what I want to do is I want to read a little bit of his bio, and I hope I don't mess the name up, but y'all understand out there, the brother has a real traditional name, very traditional name, and we have this foreigner tongue, so sometimes it's difficult for us to merge words together, but I'm gonna do my best, and the brother gonna come out here and correct me if I'm wrong. So if you've seen the flyer, you know that we have brother named Togbui. Am I correct, y'all?
Yeah.
Togbui.
Yeah.
Kpogo Afenya.
Yeah.
The first. That's his name. So this is the brother's name. Over time, I'm gonna keep knocking it so I can cram it. But
me too.
But we call the European name the slave name. The brother also goes by the name Ernie Hudson Jr., which of course he's changed that name. Call him by his African name. When he get out, he's gonna tell us what all to call him.
Yeah.
But he is an Iwi chief, and for some of you who know, Iwi is one of the prominent ethnic groups within the country of Ghana right now, West Africa, which has really been doing a lot to bring the diaspora home. So it says this brother is an Iwi chief, not an Iwi member, chief. I understand what that means. It means he's the head of the body. When he speaks, his one word means everything. It means a lot. It says he's a chief in the Francodoa Regency of Eastern Ghana. Togbui is a deputy to the regent and chief of youth in the Francodoa Regency of Eastern Ghana. He was born Ernest L. Hudson Jr. in Michigan, United States of America, and has worked as a professional actor, producer, under the name of Ernie Hudson Jr. So y'all go ahead and Google that, check him out. This is an official brother. He is the son of an actor by the name of Ernie Hudson and Dr. Jeannie L. Hudson, PhD. He lectures on ancestral reunification and organizational leadership and has enjoyed a successful career in corporate training and development. He currently serves as president of the Akroboto Center, a nonprofit which facilitates familial reunification between African DNA carriers and their continental DNA matches. Wow.
That's
Hear
heavy.
that, Baba?
Yeah,
That's the work. That's the work, man. That's what we doing out here, man.
Yeah.
Lost and Found Project. Togbui's earliest creative influence was Detroit's famed Concept East, of which his father was a contributing playwright and actor. Togbui's own formal training began at Los Angeles Inner City Cultural Center, the ICCC, as a founding participant in their children's repertory company. And it goes on and on. The brother has so many accolades, but it'd be better for me just to bring him out and let him break it down for us, y'all. So with no further ado, I'd like to bring our brother Togbui out and let's get it going. Oh, Chief.
Hey, good morning. Good morning, good brothers. How y'all doing?
What's up?
How you doing, brother?
good.
Very good. Pleasure to be here.
Welcome. So I think the first thing is the names. You can knock the name down for us so we can make sure everybody out there gets it clear. And I think right from there you can go right into picking up the bio where we left off. Give us a little bit of your background so we know who we're talking to.
Okay, so let's do the names in reverse. My birth name is Ernest L. Hudson Jr. My father an actor, so professionally I went by Ernie Hudson Jr. I'll get into the DNA story more, but I first got in contact with my Igbo family lineage. And through the Igbo family, I am Akumo Nokore Ezeanyika. Ezeanyika is the family name. I've actually been to Nigeria, visited family, etc. However, the most profound experience that I've had is going to Ghana, reconnecting with Ewe family, as well as Kasina family. In the Ewe tradition, I was reunited back into that family officially, unbeknownst to me, and it's a crazy story as I get into it. I was coronated, made a chief, and really the successor to the regent. So I became deputy regent, and I was crowned the name Togbui Kpogo Afenya the First. And what I didn't realize at the time, though they had done divination work, is that I am the reincarnation of the original Pogo, who was the founder of that particular regency. And so they did divination and said, when I came in, I had this big reception. I didn't understand why. They told me that on the back end. It's like, nah, you have to do this. You have to be a chief. You got to do this, and this. And it's an incredible honor because it's a family thing. Yeah. So there, it was unheard of that somebody coming from the United States would actually sit on the throne of that particular family. Like you're not supposed to do that. But through the divination and other things, that's actually what happened. So that's a bit of the names and how I came into those names. The actual DNA story, I'll say it in a nutshell, but I can dig in wherever we want to dig in at. Long story short, I was on Ancestry DNA back in, 2010 or something, just doing family tree type stuff, mostly off of family stories and that sort of thing. And I actually knew about my grandfather, who's from Sumter, Carolina, right? South Carolina. Okay. Yeah. So I knew that, and I knew about that. I knew the family had migrated through the Florida Panhandle up into Mississippi. Then they started going north through the Great Migration. I was born in Michigan. That's where everybody finally settled at, is up in Michigan. So most of my family from the Carolinas and Mississippi understood that part of the history. Obviously, you know that we're African. My mother became an African studies professor. She was actually at Cal State Long Beach with Karenga. And so I was aware of all of that. Somebody said, do the DNA test. I was like, I don't know if I want to do a DNA test. They don't want them to have my DNA. So I was very apprehensive against doing it. I finally went ahead and did it. When the results came back, I was connected to about 15,000 people. I was like, wow, this is kind of crazy. I didn't really know what to do with all that information.
Yeah.
I'm playing around with it, seeing different names. Somebody pops up as a second cousin. I was like, second cousin? I know most of my family. How could this be a second cousin I don't know about? Now, the family history is my father never knew his father. So there was that missing piece, but I wasn't really thinking along that line. So me and the young lady, we make a connection. We start talking. We're asking each other questions. We can't figure it out. I make a general statement. Hey, we don't really know my grandfather on my father's side. We think his name is such and such, but, I don't know. And I just blew it off. She calls me back and she says, I just spoke to my grandmother. She says that was her dad's name. Wait a minute, what? I said, can you send me a picture? She sends me a picture. The brother looked like me. I was like, whoa. That means I now have to call my father and say, hey, Dad, I think I found your dad.
Yeah.
And he was like, given this only happened, this was in 2016. No, excuse me, 2018. So at that juncture, this is 6 years ago. My father's a man in his 70s. He was like, my father? First off, it's late for that. What you talking about? So we have the conversation. We go through. It turned out the woman that was the grandmother was actually my father's sister. And so we reconnected with the family. At that juncture, I became a believer in DNA because that was something that was irrefutable to me that we could actually find somebody. Yeah. So then I'm start looking up other names and lineages and trying to find stuff. And I came across a group called DNA Tested Africans. And I got involved with them. And it was a whole organization of people that were matching people on the African continent. And I was like, wait a minute, how are y'all doing this? And so they took me through some of the steps, understood how to do it. At the time, you could download all of your information off of Ancestry DNA, put it in an Excel spreadsheet, and then scan it to see which one were 100% African matches. I did that, found about 15, 16 people. I eventually did it for my mother, father, brothers, extended family, etc., and then started reaching out to people. I found family in northern Ghana, the Kassina people, found several people in Accra, Ghana, found some people in Nigeria, and the first family I really connected with, where we had the strongest connection, was an Igbo family from Imo State, Nigeria, at this town called Orula. They actually had relatives that lived in New York. I live in New York City. So we physically went and met each other. Turns out we look just alike. I was like, wait a minute, hold up. This is crazy. So the family started reconnecting. We started talking all the time. I spend time with them to this day now. And then eventually I was able to make my trip to Ghana. It was just going because we knew through African ancestry DNA that my father had Ewe lineage. So we knew that much. I made the trip by myself. I first go to the Kassina people where we had already found DNA relatives. I hung out with them. It was an incredible experience. Welcome back home. It was amazing. I then go out to Frankadia, Ghana. When I'm in Frankadia, again, I go out. I'm thinking I'm just going to do a traditional naming ceremony, meet the people, have a cultural exchange, and that's it. I get to the town, and it's a crowd of people all out in the street. In the scene, what's the movie? The Woman King.
Yeah.
Remember the Woman King, where they come back from war and everybody's lining the streets? It was a scene like that. All these people out in the street, they're firing off guns. People are dancing. I'm like, well, what's this about? And the gentleman who was translating for me, he was like, wow, I didn't know they were going to do all of this because we think it's just regular stuff. They march us into town. We have to walk in by foot. And before I can cross into the traditional palace, there's a whole ceremony thing that happens. I cross into the palace, I go in, and then all this festivity starts, drumming starts. And at some point, this old woman comes to me and she says, "Are you my father?" I wasn't quite sure how to respond to that. I look at the guy who's translating, say yes, say yes. I say yes. So my joke is anytime a woman asks you if you are her daddy, you might want to rethink that question.
Yeah.
I'm hard about that. Because apparently when I said yes, that was the confirmation that I was Pogo who had returned. And so the family name is Akrobortu, which is the name of my organization. It means one who has left and has returned.
Okay.
And so I was Pogo who had left and now come back again. So literally I had fulfilled a story that they had as a family, which was the meaning of the family stool. I was like, I don't know nothing about this. I just happened to show up. So I spend the day there. They pour powder on my head. They give me bracelets. And I'm like, wow, nobody's told me what's going on. I don't even know about the divination yet. I just know that I've shown up in this extravagant affair.
Yeah.
They put baby powder on their head, all this. I call a Ghanaian friend of mine. He said, wow, man, all this stuff went on. They put baby powder on my hair. He said, they put baby powder on your head. He said, are you sure? I said, yeah, why? He said, that's what they do when they make like kings and stuff. Are you sure about that? I said, yeah, I know when they put baby powder on my head. I thought it was like a joke or something. I don't mean to question anybody's anything, but what is it? Is that what that really means? So then I started asking questions. I go back and they say, yeah, you're going to be adopted as the regent's son, and you're going to be his successor. Huh?
That's heavy.
They telling me, okay, well, this is where all the regents are buried. When you take over, you'll be buried here with the rest of your ancestors and this and that. And I was like, wow, it was a whole nother, like my whole life changed in that moment. I stayed with him for about 3 or 4 days. We did a lot of traditional things. There was other divination that I had to do. I've been learning the Ewe language, not really good at it, but learning it as much as possible. And so since that time, it's been quite the journey. And so that's literally how I came into reconnecting with these lineages. Since that time, I'm still reaching out to other families, finding other connections, I'm trying to get one clear story with my Igbo family. We know a particular person who had been enslaved from the family in Urula. And we believe he's the grandfather of my second great grandmother. We're just trying to get all the final documentation to put it in place so that we have one full story.
Yeah.
Straight across. Wow. But other than that, I've picked up so many stories about how various people of members of the families have been sold into enslavement, how people had come out of enslavement. My great great grandmother, she told a story about how she remembered when enslavement ended. So my father's sister told me that story after we connected, and she would talk to me about all these things about the family. So it's been an incredible journey. There's so many elements to it, but that's it in a nutshell.
That's an amazing story, man. That's amazing.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. We need this movie. Yeah, man.
I'm actually in the process of trying to put it down so that I have both a book and a film. I've been giving lectures, so I've been sometimes people I guess feel guilty around February or something, so people will invite me to come out and share the story about it. So I have a whole presentation that I do in terms of sharing that story, not just with people in general, but with our people. As it was stated earlier, it's so important to hear that people are doing this. And what I've come to realize, and I didn't really understand, a lot of people, it's not just that people are doing this collectively, but people don't believe that it's possible. And so when I've actually helped people through phone calls. I'll see somebody online, they say they're trying to do it. I'll walk through it with you. So we get on a Zoom call or something, and I'll help them find somebody, and they'll find a match that's 100% African. And I said, that person right there, you match them because you most likely share somebody who was enslaved. And they'll say, wow, that's kind of crazy. And then we'll go to a different topic of conversation for about 10 or 15 minutes. And then they usually come back and go, hey, wait a minute. Wait, are you saying that that's like the family I was connected to in Africa? So most certainly it was one of them. And it takes a minute for it to actually hit people.
Absolutely.
Like, this is real. And so I think it's important work, and that's why I've chosen to do it. So
that's wonderful, man.
It's absolutely possible.
Yeah, we call it lineage. We refer to it as
it's absolutely possible because.
Go ahead, Baba. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I'm saying it's absolutely possible because it happened like that, almost identical to our story. I reached out to Chief. I reached out to Chief, and I told him about how I kept coming across these strange names, Afenya, Bakoli, all of these strange names. Chief just so happened to be living over in Sierra Leone now, so he used his contacts to find Afenya, and it's been an amazing journey, man. It has. We connected with her. We talked to her. She has connected with us. Bakoli has connected with us. It seems to be the exact same story over and over and over again.
Yeah, kind of relates. I kind of relate to as well when it comes to the paper trail. Like, you're trying to get all the elements together to find out if that's your actual like Igbo ancestor, right? Yeah. So I was able to find my 6th great grandfather. He was Yoruba because there was a paper trail. Yeah. He actually retained elements of his Yoruba name, and he passed those names on to his sons. So I didn't have to do the DNA test; I just had the paper trail.
Nice. That's a rarity indeed. In fact, I'll say this about the DNA. I think it's critical that we do this work at this time in history.
Right.
Because many of us, I'm 59, and a lot of with my children, for example, they have less DNA. There's a measure of DNA called a centimorgan, right? Mm-hmm. And the greater the centimorgans, the more verifiable the match is. Mm-hmm. Once you get down into the single digits, you can still verify it, but depending on what authoritative source you're dealing with, people may call it into question, right? Mm-hmm. So I might be 10 centimorgans matching someone. My mom may be 12 matching the family, but my daughter is only 5. Right. And most authoritative sources won't take her 5. Mm-hmm. So if somebody in her generation or younger went to do DNA testing, they won't find these matches. No. So for those of us who got a little age on us, and certainly the elders in the community, the more they can be tested and matched, the greater we can restore these lineages, because I feel like this is, and it was a collateral thing that was not intended to happen. But now that it has happened, it's important that we leverage it to our benefit.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Exactly. You know, we call this process lineage restoration. That's kind of like the term that we've given it. And you know, there's multiple forms of DNA testing on the market that you can pay a little money for and get. But I noticed that a lot of people don't know how to work the system. They don't know how to really, like you said, dig in and find these connections and put the stories together. I find it fascinating that you utilize divination. That divination was utilized by the Africans to confirm you. Yeah. And I had a similar kind of experience as well. I went to a Mandingo village and looked like somebody I never heard of before. And they said, that's Fode, that's Fode. Not to Fode Peking. They said, this Fode's son. I'm like, who the hell is Fode? What are you talking about? So I feel what you're saying. They looked at me, looked over my face. They said, man, definitely family. He said, Mandingo, it's a Mandingo man. They was just identifying me. Yeah, yeah. And the same way Dominique is saying that he inherited this tradition of ethnicity in Africa, in my family, we was told that we was Mandingos in Africa. I didn't grow up hearing, oh, we're Indians in America. I grew up hearing that we're Mandingos in Africa. And we Geechee down south. Yes, and so I understood like where to place my own lineage at to start in terms of ethnicity, right? It's powerful that divination is used on the African side. And they may not rely on DNA, but they rely on other things. When I went into a Mende village, and come to find out that my cousin Kimo right here. He found cousins from this village. I had no idea when I was in the village working with them for years.
Wow.
That, and the whole time I'm telling them, some of us in America probably come from this village. The whole time I'm telling them that.
Yeah.
Come to find out, my cousin found a cousin from that village.
Yep.
And so we have a different bond now, but even then they were looking at me and they were looking at my marks, what they call marks, facial features. You know, this temple, the dented temple, is pushed in. It's a marking. I didn't know that. This part of your face where it has a strong this. When they see this, they say he got the marks. So they know their faces. They know their features. And they was already sizing me up. Before Kimo even said, hey man, I got a cousin named Bankole. Let's find out who he is. Find out, same people.
Wow. See, I've developed I have a developing theory, I should say, that I'd love to go and do like doctoral work in anthropology on. And it's essentially this. We've always been told that with the enslavement of Africans, we couldn't rebel effectively because there were so many people from so many different places. We couldn't communicate well, etc. Right? But given stories like the one you just told about multiple people in your family coming from a specific village, it turns out, like I was born in a place called Benton Harbor, Michigan. And it turns out there's other members from Benton Harbor, Michigan, people I don't even know, but it turns out we're distant cousins, which is logical because we're from the same small town, but they're connected to the same family in Imo State, Nigeria.
Wow.
So we go, wait a minute, how do we get this many people together? But then when I begin to realize, okay, every salesman knows that if you have things that you're selling, if you sell one at a time, that's a waste of your time because you have to keep selling every time. You want to sell in lots. And the reality is the purpose of what we call these slave castles, those were selling posts. And so people came to represent interests in the Americas and they brought lots. And so the truth of the matter is, if you done took 10 people, you're trying to sell all 10 people. You don't want to break that up and do one at a time. You're selling them in lots. We come to the Americas, we're on plantations together. Then we got the breeding plantations. So now we're really spreading the gene, right? Then we get emancipation and we have people moving together as families. Hey, so-and-so went to this state, they doing all right, I'm gonna go follow them. And so we begin to see families living around each other. A lot of my cousins to this day all live in the same apartment buildings or live down the street from each other. Every time somebody move, everybody move, right? So it makes sense. Our lineages are actually more intact than we realize.
Absolutely.
We just got somebody's explanation to make us think it was something else. But in reality, our lineage, like when they say we're sisters and brothers, we are.
It's real.
We are. In fact, I'm gonna do you one better. In talking to Baba Kimo, we were exchanging some things, and I said, well, you know, I have some of these people with this last name in my family. And he's like, wait a minute, I got them too. We might actually end up being distant cousins.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because you said Sumter. You said Sumter, South Carolina, and that's Gullah Geechee zone. That's us, man. No,
definitely. So the family
we got a lot of people from Sumter moved up into Orangeburg. A lot of people from Sumter in that area moved up into Orangeburg after the emancipation. And the reason why they did was because slavery made people work in those dire conditions. But as soon as they wasn't enslaved no more, they ran away from them swamps. They got away from that coastline. They went inland. Orangeburg, according to the Europeans, had the most fertile land in the state. Orangeburg became a gathering ground for our people who was agriculturalists. They were looking to farm. They were looking to take care of themselves. So it was like a great gathering of lineages from all across the state that met up in Orangeburg. That's why we got two HBCUs. Like you see, we got a lot of the foundation of modern South Carolina is rooted in Orangeburg.
Wow, nice.
So, Baba, you was telling me also that there might be a potential family connection. Is that what you were talking about in terms of Sumter?
I want to hear
that. Yeah, because he told me he told me he had some a gas man in his family, and the gas has come from Sumter. Even Dominique is he's also related on the gas side.
Mm-hmm.
Uncle Tom Gas. So
Yeah.
my particular line of gases, they came from Sumter and they came to Orangeburg.
They was preaching.
Orangeburg was like a meeting spot. Yeah, a lot of people after emancipation they came through Orangeburg. But I wouldn't be surprised if the last name is Gas from Sumter. I wouldn't be surprised at all if we disagree.
Yeah.
It would be no doubt. They're all over that area, even in Cope. I've told Chief many times, I've never met a person from Cope that I wasn't related to by blood or marriage. Everybody in Cope is related, and we all share the same lineage. As a matter of fact, even with our cousin Fatia, she's not only matching with me, she's matching with 10 other cousins on my father's side.
Yeah,
same lineage, the same lineage. So that's telling me that we came from the southern part of Sierra Leone, and my DNA is matching up with people from Sierra Leone. Not only Sierra Leone, but also I have a lot of Igbo matches as well. So and I spoke to them. I've developed relationships with them. Like I said, I've developed relationships with Fatia and Bakoli the most. I talk to them on a regular basis, and also the other thing is, even now me and Chief are cousins on paternal line, but Fatia DNA is also matching up with some other cousins on that side.
Yeah,
you know who I'm talking about, Vincent Pendarvis. Her DNA is coming up all over the Orangeburg area.
And Sierra, if I'm correct, from that Finding Your Roots episode with Dr. Gates, she descends from the Pendarvis family. So
I seen that as well.
Yeah,
the Zimmerman, right?
Zimmerman and Pendarvis, I believe.
Yeah. You know, go ahead, Baba.
No, I was about to say that our story is it pretty much sounds the same. But one thing I wanted to ask you about, I was looking at another podcast you were on, and you were telling a story about a migration. I believe it was an Igbo man. He got sold into slavery, and he came to the Carolinas. I wanted Chief to hear that story, if you don't mind telling it.
No, that was essentially the story I was talking about. My the man who's either the father or grandfather of my second great grandmother, that he had come from family. The family's in Arula to this day, and so that person that got caught up in enslavement in Onitsha had come to the Americas, and so it looks like that's who that person was. Again, like I said, we're just looking for other pieces of documentation to corroborate that, right? To have it, though it looks like that's what it is, but I want to have a clear paper trail as to exactly what's what and when. So
you see, that's how it is for me.
That's another thing.
That clear paper trail.
That's another thing. Fatia sent me a picture of her father, and her father and my great grandmother, Emma Jane Pedro. It's like looking in the mirror. They look so much alike. It's amazing. It's like they're twins or something, man. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. And not only that, when you match up, Chief and I share a grandfather, a fifth grandfather, Caesar Hart, and Caesar Hart had a son, and one of his sons was named Agrippa Hart. And if you look at Agrippa Hart's picture and you look at Fode's picture, it's like looking at the same man.
Yeah,
it really is. It's like looking at the same man, and that man. And they all seem to have come from Taimakore, the village. The village that we
know. I told you what I was told, that you do favor that particular family.
Yeah. You know, Brother Togbui, I think that, you know, like I was saying earlier, just your testimony, I'll call it testimony like we in church, right? That's what it is. You know, your testimony, bro, of going from not knowing your African roots to going into genealogy, being able to even discover your father's missing links. Yeah. It's a very powerful story because some of us, we need to hear it in order to get motivation.
Yes.
Yes. You know, a lot of people are out here giving DNA tests a bad name. Maybe they find information that they don't want to, you know, that they don't want to find, and then they get mad and want to discourage everybody else.
Right.
But I love the way that you outline how it went from, you know, seeing that you have these 100% African cousins in your matches. Because I'm always going through Chemo's matches. I also help other people. We always help other people to find their matches. And it's gotten to the point with us now where we're actually helping the African tested people find the rest of the family on the other side. So we're actually doing this. And Baba Kimo got some very powerful DNA. Let me tell you that, man. Because he's connected to so many different lineages in one place. And they understand themselves. They come from one church. They come from one community. And they know how everybody connects at the root. So it's very easy to put people in the context. Baba Kimo does that very, very well.
Nice.
But they also have people like that who can do that on this side. And that's what you was talking about with the divination and them already identifying you as potentially being Pogo.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's powerful because it shows that they have a tradition of waiting for those who went out to return.
Yes. Very much so. It was something that when I got there, I wasn't aware. I had heard. Well, let me say this: I studied Yoruba for the last 35 years. Damn. Yeah, 35 years. I didn't realize it had been that long until I said it out loud. So I've been studying the Yoruba tradition as practiced in Nigeria. And the man who I was first initiated with, he had introduced me to certain concepts, and certainly divination was a strong thing. So I knew on the Yoruba side that happened from that vantage, but I didn't realize how prolific it was. As I was studying cosmogony in general through West Africa, that also was accompanying me on this trip. So when they came to me and they said through divination, it made perfect sense. Because I understood it from a different context, right? I began to realize that in Yoruba they say Ifa, well the Eve say Afa, right? And so different people may say Fa, Ifa, Fa. It's all the same stuff, whether it's Benin, Yoruba, whatever. They even got the same markings. They do it differently, but the same stuff. So once they said divination, it clicked, and I went, and to your point, okay, yeah, they're already verifying things. Yeah. They already know certain stories. And especially for a family that had a regency, they have to know their lineage because that everything is contingent upon that. In fact, I'll do you one better. Part of the story is I have a good friend of mine. His name is Kofi Osei Tutu. And so I've known Kofi, 10 years now, here in New York, as a fraternity brother. We just hanging out. We happened to be in Ghana at the same time. And that's who I called when I said they put the powder in my head and I called my Ghanaian friend. It was Kofi. I said, oh man, Kofi, this is going on. So we talked. By the end of my trip, when they told me that I was the reincarnation of this person and that the Regency had received its status from an Akan, the Akwamu Hine. So he's called the Akwamu Hine. He gave the original Pogo the rights to set up the Regency.
Wow.
And I said, wait a minute, this is weird. So I called Kofi and I said, wait a minute, aren't you related to that guy? So it turns out that the Akwamu Hine at that time was Kofi's like great uncle or something like that. And had given the rights to Pogo to set it up. And now their grand descendants are friends in America. We didn't even know.
That's
We just happened to be in Ghana at the same time, just on a fluke. And so we were learning the information at the exact same time.
Man, that's part two of the movie, man. This is a movie.
That's amazing, man.
This is a movie, man. I'm telling you. This is a film.
That's powerful.
This is a film, and you're an actor, so you can play yourself. You know what
exactly.
I mean? Yeah. I'm already seeing the money. Ting, 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 ting. I'm already seeing it, man.
But all these connections, man, this is ancestral. Like, this was bound to happen. This was meant to happen.
No, and the thing is, we have so many more stories being told. I know people who are connected to different families, and as you said, for like, I manage DNA kits for people on the continent. And as I'm talking to some of my cousins about, oh yeah, I met this family. In fact, one guy's related, an Igbo young man, he's related on my father's side. And then the young woman is related to my Yoruba family on my mother's side. And we were doing DNA, and I accidentally put their kit numbers together when I was trying to figure something out. And then it came up as a match. I said, wait, that doesn't make sense. How are they a match? And they're on different sides of my family. And we got to talking, and it turns out their families are related in Nigeria.
Wow.
They didn't even know.
Wow.
So some of the work we're doing on this side of the pond, it's affecting the continent as well. They don't know, because beyond grandparents, maybe great-grandparents, a lot of the people, depending on which country you're talking about, particularly Ghana and Nigeria, they don't know the history as efficiently as could be. Or I should rephrase that and say, everybody doesn't know the history as efficiently as could be.
Right.
Yeah. You know, there's a general history that they might teach in the books, but then there's also the oral traditions that the people preserve down to grassroots. It's powerful. What just your whole story, man. I'm not clowning. I'm dead serious, man. This is a movie. This is really something that would move the nation. It would move people towards saying, "Wow, man, I got to take this DNA test. I got to find my family. And I got to connect with this brother." And that's ultimately what we want to be able to do from this research, is that if there's any broader purpose for it, it is to inspire the nation. It's to inspire the rest of the lost people out there. We have a project called Lost and Found Project, and we highlight Baba Akimo's particular story because his own covers so many of us. You know, his own is so dope. And then we've been able to connect with people here who don't even know that they're connected, but we know they're connected because they're connected to the same people that on the other side. And just like what you're saying, putting this story together. I think it's happening more than what we're hearing about, because not everyone has a platform. Not everyone is discussing it openly. But in the face of people trying to perpetuate the myth that we lost all our language, we lost all of our culture, we lost our true identity, I don't think we lost it. I think it was misplaced. I think it was hidden from us, but we never lost it. And stories like this prove that we never lost anything about who we were. You know, and I don't want to ramble, but here in Sierra Leone, there's a history here, and I'm going to ask you the same thing about your lineages as well. Here, we can go back centuries and see the warfare. We understand that it came as a consequence of the breakdown of the Mali Empire and everybody going for their own, everybody competing for the land and trying to establish their own selves. And that created a war environment. Neighbors not trusting neighbors. Some people fortifying their villages. You know, a tendency towards military campaigning, locally, natively. A lot of times we don't understand the conditions that led to one ancestor ending up over there. But it could very easily happen. And so we might not be able to look back and see how they performed their warfare back then. But in this particular country, and like neighboring Liberia, where the lineages are the same, they both of these countries had wars recently. Sierra Leone had an 11-year war from 1991 to 2002. And during that war, they had modern warfare and they had traditional warfare. So because the traditional warriors came out, we could get a glimpse of the type of warriors and the type of warfare that was being meted out pre-colonial. Because that was the military agency that they were relying on. Their society militants, militias. And so they became forces to protect villages and people and things like that during the war. The reason why I'm saying this is because in this war, when they would attack a village, they would take everybody and they would do a sorting. Mm-hmm. The men, they would have to carry things on their heads, or they would have to take a gun and become a rebel.
Yeah.
The woman would have to do the same, or they would have to be a wife. They would have to become the woman of one of the, one of the militants.
Yeah.
And a whole village would be cleared out. They would burn the whole village down, burn the whole house down. Like, if you go back, there's nothing there. And so, me studying how this war happened here recently, and looking back to the fact that even with Singbe Pierre, the guy from the Amistad, he made it back a few years later, and his whole village and everybody was gone in this country. Mm-hmm. It shows you that the people they was putting on those ships were family. They were clansmen. They were kinsmen. And when you study how the slave trade was conducted in particular regions, here in Sierra Leone, the majority went directly to Charleston. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Some went to other places, but the majority that they took from here ended up in the port of Charleston or Savannah. Yeah. So that's very important, because I'm asking you, is there kind of like do you see like a story, a pre-colonial story unfolding within your story? Because just like you said, you met the descendant of ancestors, homeboy, friend.
Yeah.
So it's mystical. It's something mystical happening here. But have you seen the warfare yet? Because I can see the warfare that led to many leaving Sierra Leone, clearly.
Sure. So I think it's, I think especially we're talking about pre-colonial, and we're looking at as Europeans in particular are coming in. I think it's because we know the continent, Western Africa, was chopped up based off of the product, the natural resource that it could provide, right?
Yeah.
And so different labor brought to different places with different things. So on the Igbo side, that's why down in Virginia, they said the majority of Igbos got in Virginia.
Yeah.
Because of that, right? So there was a very clear intent to bring people through for very specific reasons. One of the things that we've seen come out now, and is being documented more and more, is this concept today in Igbo land. There are traditional chieftaincies, right? There's different titles that a man takes as he goes through life, right? Mm. And so one of the results in what's called a chieftaincy, and then there's something called an eze, and the eze is considered the king, and today is regarded as a king. The challenge with that concept is that historically the Igbo were a decentralized people, like the Ewe people. And so they were decentralized, unlike Yoruba, which had a centralized government, right? Mm-hmm. So then the question becomes, well, how do we get to this centralized thing among the Igbo if it was decentralized? And we begin to realize that a lot of these families who were original Eze families, which meant that the story in my particular family in Arula, the man who came into that area, he came from Anambra State, went into what's now Imo State, found some land and set up shop, chose to live there. It was good land, Arula, good land. He brings his sons and they became the progenitors of that particular clan. But because dad was the oldest, Mborie, he's the oldest, then he becomes the Eze. He says all the traditional prayers and everything else. He's not a ruler like a king. He's the spiritual head of the family. Mm-hmm. Tradition is it goes from father to oldest son. And then, of course, if a son can't take it, it goes to the next son or the next brother's son or some lineage, right? Mm-hmm. But now when we start getting the European expansion coming in, they begin to kidnap those families out, because you got to figure who is opposing the Europeans when they come in.
They are
those families.
Yeah.
You're disrupting our lifestyle. There seems to be a disproportionate amount of African Americans or just diasporans, not even because I don't want to say African Americans. That implies somehow the islands in South America is not included in that. But throughout the diaspora, a lot of us are connected to these quote unquote royal families, these Eze families on the Igbo side. And like, well, why is that? Well, it's logical. These were the people who were providing the opposition. And they were telling people, hey, look, if you want to get them, we can make you a warrant chief. And they created this office called warrant chief. And they got rid of the people who were the actual Ezes, and they moved them out. So now we have this whole red cap thing, and it's all fabricated. I'm not even sure some of the clothing, we question if it's traditional Igbo, because you look at the very old pictures, it doesn't look like the modernized stuff.
Right.
In fact, the agu, the leopard, is the traditional totem. But now they got lions on it. There ain't no lions.
Oh,
there.
yeah.
What you talking about, right?
Yeah,
so just from that whole thing, we see that there's been a changing and shifting of the culture because of that influence. But then when we talk about more modern things like the Biafran War, the Ghana Go Home campaign, and all these things, I use the word reconciliation because so much of that stuff has happened internally. The Yoruba say everything against the Igbo.
Yeah.
The Igbo say everything against the Yoruba. I study both, and I'm like, yo, y'all got some of the same words.
Yeah.
Stuff. Y'all doing the same thing, but they don't know because they're not dealing with each other. And so there's this internal strife. And so part of the reconciliation is exactly that. As we're reaching out to these families and I'm saying, hey, we're related, I realize that it's very important how I approach, how I have the conversation, what information I reveal up front and don't reveal, because people are triggered over so many things about that, let alone the acknowledgement that some family member was actually enslaved at some point due to political strife.
Yeah.
You just have to admit that to start out with. And some people don't know. It's a very difficult thing. I tend to follow indigenous spirituality. A lot of my cousins are Christianized, and so they have a hard time. So it's not even a conversation. Some have said we can get along as long as we don't talk about that.
Yeah.
That just goes to show what I always quote: the past might be past, but the feelings are ever present.
Yes,
100%. 100%. That's why I like the term reconciliation, because we are literally reconciling so that we can restore those lineages, because there's a lot of feelings and they don't get resolved unless we deal with it on a personal level.
Yeah.
Right? It can't be general. I learned African history through philosophy and culture and going to cultural centers as a kid growing up, and that was wonderful. But like you said, until you start learning about the actual wars that happened in the last 50 years, let's say, and things that are going on, there's a whole lot of stuff that that changes your perspective about the reality there, just so you can connect with what that person is dealing with.
It's good that we're putting it in the context, because all of us are raised to believe that there was a transatlantic slave trade. In the way that they define it, that there was some trade happening. It was normal to just grab people and sell them. They don't give you the context of warfare. They don't tell you that these different societies had different levels of development among themselves and variance of culture and reasons they have their own antagonisms, and that the European was able to exploit the divisions that were already present and able to antagonize them and arm both sides and fan the flames, and take millions out. It's powerful, because I'm telling you right now, you got people who would doubt even if we came from Africa over to America, and it's a thing, because those of us who are actually touching the continent, meeting the people, hearing the other side of the story, the people here know that slavery happened. They will tell you, yes, it happened. Even it happened here. Slavery, domestic slavery, was legal in Sierra Leone until 1927. So they remember. Remember.
That's right.
Here. Not over there. If you go back to the traditional cultures here, a lot of them had caste systems. And one of the castes would be of forced labor, enslaved labor, or captive labor, right? Might not call it a chattel slave in the sense of America, but it was someone who was pawned, someone who owned somebody something, someone who was being punished for something. you absolutely could end up working on that farm for 2-3 years.
Yeah.
You know, that's better than killing you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or, you know, so every one of these chiefdoms here have their own bylaws for how they deal with infractions on their own law.
Right.
How they make their own law.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about African sovereignty in the United States, we have to understand that it's localized. It's localized sometimes even down to the extended family.
Mm-hmm.
The extended family might have their own code that's just theirs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, and so when you learn that, you realize that we have the same right and the same responsibility to develop the bylaws, the constitution of our own family lineages, how we're going to carry on tradition, how we're going to pass this down. You know, what symbols are we going to identify with? What is our totem? You know, we don't always have to go back and become something that our ancestors were. In the future, we're going to be creating a whole new African, a whole new Africa. And so it's powerful that now it's not just a figment of the imagination, something that people say to us, transatlantic slave trade. But now we have the resources to go back and research and say, well, dang, in 1452, Pope Nicholas declared war on sub-Saharan Africa.
Yep.
All the Africans and all the Muslims. He sent the Portuguese and Spanish down to Africa to begin the war.
Yeah.
War is the context of this.
Yeah.
I had a brother tell me, man, there was no slave trade. There was a war of invasion on Africa. If you move them away, none of it happens.
Yep.
And so it's so true, man.
You can define our ancestors as POWs, prisoners of war.
I don't know any other way we can define it.
I mean,
not only our ancestors, though, you can define us
as prisoners
of war in the United States of America right now. If you have a child who was born yesterday, they are born a prisoner of war in the United States of America.
And I think I think it's critical. People use this word healing and all that, but it's critical just for understanding reality that we are redefining these things by these terms. I think historically people have been scared to do it because when you say, wait a minute, this is in the context of war, then that means that I need to move in a certain direction. And if I think I'm not ready to move in that direction, I get apprehensive, right? A little bit of cognitive dissonance. What I'm perceiving and my reality is not matching, trying to figure it out. I know for me in my personal journey, I look at things that how we define things, say in the 1960s. I was born in 65, again, Michigan. And so we had the Nation of Islam and other organizations around, and we heard all that stuff, right? Late 60s, 70s. But we still use a lot of the rhetoric, how we talked about it from that time.
Yeah.
It's not that the concepts are irrelevant, but it's that we have new information, more information,
yes, sir.
and we haven't redefined.
Yeah.
What I found with the DNA is it allows me to have this conversation as we're doing now, talking about family, talking about bonding.
Yeah.
I don't have to have a diatribe about the psychology of Europeans and what not necessary for us to make the work that we're doing now. It's not that should be avoided. It's just that we're building our family ties together, and it changes the context of all that stuff because I recognize much of that conversation happened because we had to survive as prisoners of war in a certain space. The way we're speaking now, we're speaking as free men attempting to build, recognizing that there are people who oppose our right to self-determine our freedom, but we still choose to move in that direction. But because of that, our language has changed phenomenally, and it's important, again, that we continue to get this stuff out because people need to hear, wait a minute, there are people who speak like this. They're thinking like this. Wait a minute, hold it. Months of 4 days, he lives in Sierra Leone? Wait, how you do that? There's people trying to figure that out. Wait, we can move to Ghana? They giving up citizenship? People don't know that these things are now possible. So all of this is essentially essential for everything we're doing now.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Got to review the playbook and recontextualize things for the context of the day.
It's changing. It's literally life changing.
Yeah.
It's changing the narrative that we've been force fed, where there's not enough information to tell us who we are. Now we have access to information to clarify who we are. And I like what you just said, brother, because we're not spending time destroying the white man here. What we're doing is reinforcing the black man. We're actually studying more and using that energy to understand ourselves and put our families together. Because that's what this thing is really about. The fact that Dom can tell you that his great-great-great-grandfather knew that he was a Yoruba man and passed it down to his children. The fact that my great-great-grandmother was able to tell my mother and her mother, hey, we're Mandingos in Africa, that right there is just oral. But come to find out, very, very true. It's undeniably true. And so these stories help to break the mold. We talk about the family of Malcolm X. His family had an oral tradition that their ancestor Ajar was Bambara from Mali. Only in the family do they know. They talk about it at family reunions. It's not public information.
Didn't he come through Charleston? Didn't he come through Charleston as well?
Yeah, he came through Charleston.
I couldn't believe it.
First in South Carolina. Then his son ended up in North Carolina. And then he the one who ended up in Georgia. Same thing with Elijah Muhammad. Elijah Muhammad was from, his family originally was enslaved in Wake County, North Carolina. They ended up in South Carolina for a period, and then they went down to Georgia. Then all the way over to Texas. So when you study these lineages, you realize that all of our lineages have done the same great migration from Africa, sometimes from interior Africa to the coast, from the coast all the way to America somewhere, sometimes to the Caribbean first. Had a generation or two there, and then somebody ended up in America, and you come from that person that went to America. So studying these lineages help us really put our identity back together. And the fact of the matter is that the fact of the matter is that no matter what kind of DNA test you take, you can take the African ancestry test, and it's going to check one or two lineages. Your mother's mother's mothers or your father's father's fathers. And the autosomal test, for me, is the most valuable test. Because it tests the whole genome. And it provides you with not necessarily the ethnicity matches. The direct lineage matches, people who share the same identical DNA as you. That right there tells you that there's no way for this person to have identical DNA as me without having an identical ancestor as me.
Exactly.
Exactly right.
Now, I wish that point was more discussed by African ancestry, because I've met so many people who say, "Oh, I am this," based off of a person who lived thousands of years ago, right, or 500 years ago, or whatever. It identifies one individual, and that may be true. Like clearly on my father's side, it is true. We do have Eve in the family, right? So it was inaccurate. But the idea of actually connecting to real people who are descendants, and we can actually go meet each other and then find out that we look alike and all these other things, that is beyond invaluable. Something that I was told as a kid is, the whole reason why people use the X, right? You'll never know the family last name, know where you come from. And yet now I can go to Imo State, Nigeria, and say that we're from the clan of Mbiagu. And I've seen the ancestral land. I've seen the ancestral land in Frankadia. I've gone to the shrines of the family in northern Ghana and been with the people and done divination with them. Like, no, these are family relatives. And they're like, no, come back. We wait for you to come back. So it's powerful because you're told it could never happen.
Have you been able to get your citizenship?
I was supposed to have it this November, but they had the process went from, we did interviews in September, and instead of doing the citizenship ceremony shortly thereafter, they didn't do it until November. And be quite honest, I didn't have it to be there for 3 months. I couldn't. Right. I wanted to, but I couldn't.
It's important because, Sierra Leone is also given citizenship, but they're giving it only based on African ancestry DNA results. And I've been here before they even start doing it. I was one of the advocates for the citizenship based on DNA.
Right.
And originally, when we start talking to the government here, it was saying all descendants, people who have a connection. Because in 1989, this government went to United States of America and pulled 12 of our elders from the Gullah Geechee community and brought us here on a homecoming.
Right.
And we've been coming back for 30 plus years,
right.
being recognized as family across the sea.
Right.
So why aren't people who can verify that they're Gullah Geechees able to get citizenship here? We're family from across the sea.
Sure.
That was the initial conversation we took to the government, and we implied also that there's also people taking DNA tests. And by that time, they had already given Isaiah Washington, the Hollywood actor, they had already given him the first DNA-based African citizenship. So we was piggybacking on that because he hadn't continued the conversation.
Right.
He hadn't opened the door for nobody else. He just went on. I'm like, man, did y'all see that?
Right.
54 African countries, and one of them gives citizenship based solely on DNA, and y'all don't see that?
Yeah.
And so we went to have the conversation with the government, and all kinds of business and all kinds of other interests start happening as the thing started to roll, and it went completely off track. But the difference is that Ghana is giving citizenship based on African identity, period. Your African ancestry, you from Jamaica, you from wherever, even if your people ain't from Ghana, just go through the process, right?
Yeah.
And that's a lot different. That's a Pan-African policy versus a DNA lineage policy.
Certainly. Those things help. I mean, if you have it, it is considered, but I'm gonna be 100% honest. And I think people should really take this under consideration. For those people from the diaspora who have gone back to the continent to live, especially if they're seeking business opportunities, buy land, citizenship, whatever it is, make no mistake, the expectation is that you are coming to help rebuild.
Yeah.
If you think you're going to be like, yo, they just gave me a title and I got it going on, it's popping right now. No, that's not the point. If I had some people tell me, well, that's kind of bad on their part because they're trying to get something for nothing. I said, no, not at all. I'm being called to work for my people. If I'm not being called to work for my people, then there are other people who would love for me to work for them. I don't want to do that anymore. I'd rather put this work in for my people. And so I think it's really important that as people look to the continent, if they're looking to reside, get citizenship, if you're coming in and you have a plan, you have an idea, you know how to put some things together, whatever your professional expertise is. Mine is public speaking. So the reason why the Acroborder project is called Acroborder Leadership Project now is because I'm using my professional skills to generate monies for it so that it can remain viable. So I don't have to rely solely on donations, right? The more we do those things, then as we step into the Sierra Leones, the Ghanas, the Nigerias, the Benins, it's a much different conversation. It's a much different conversation because you are capable of building, as should be in any healthy conversation, rather than asking for something.
Right.
You know, that's a significant difference that I don't think many people are really taking seriously.
Absolutely. Yeah. I want to ask you real quick, and then I want to give Baba Kimo and Dom an opportunity also to ask some final questions. But I want to ask you in terms, how do you see all of this in the context of the struggle for reparations? How do you see it now that we're able to embark on these genealogical journeys, researches, and really every family we can do this for if we had the resources.
Sure.
We have the resources to have a laboratory and a staff that can just get people tested, go through their research, help them put their trees together, even if only to identify those who have 4 African matches and then open up those relationships, right? What does it mean for reparations now, in terms of the slavery? Because it shows that families in Africa were impacted as well. That they lost a worker, they lost an uncle, they lost a daddy, they lost relatives who would have also changed their plight and their future had this thing not happened. And so I talked briefly about the perception that all of this is warfare. Even today, us being held the way we are is warfare. The conditions that we live under is warfare. But how do we get reparations without ending that war, first of all? And secondly, is this an argument? Is this a case where we can actually extend the reparations discussion and pursuit back to the continent? How can we utilize these connections on the continent to strengthen our reparations case?
Sure. So my immediate thought always goes to the fact that the Western civilization is a litigious society, right? It's based in law. Mm-hmm. And so this idea is that you must have proof in that litigious society to say, here's my case. And so certainly if I've amassed DNA tests, documentation, I have several forms of proof I can lay out and say it's no longer a theory. From this place at this time, this person was kidnapped, they were sold here or whatever it was. They were on this plantation. We see the record, it shows this, and that brings us to me. And because my family went through this, then reparations are deserved because we can show this. Because we know the question will be, as it is being proposed, well, how do we know that all of the Black people in America are actually descended from those who were enslaved, right? That's what's being put forth now. And so certainly we could prove it. I am still in a state of flux about this idea that some of the lineages get to prove it, and then those who can't, like what happens to them? They don't get anything. They're out because they can't prove their case, but only some do it. Is it a class action thing? And those are, I think, very real considerations, because what it says is some will be entitled to and others will not. For me, I look at it from a self-determination standpoint. The truth of the matter is, in doing all this lineage work and reconnecting with families and having the conversations with people on the ground and making these connections and even connecting with you brothers, there comes a time, and I think of when I left home, where I'll share this story very quickly. I moved out the house with somebody. My son's on the way. I'm doing my life. My father says, hey, if you get it together, I'll help you buy a car. And I said, okay, great. And I got the money together, the record some money. He said, get 1,000. I got 1,000. Sit down, I want to get the car. He said, well, you got $1,000? I said, yeah. He said, well, you got enough to get a car then. I said, yeah, but you said you was going to match me. He said, but I don't need to. You got $1,000. You're good to go. You can do that on your own. And I was mad at first, and my response was to say, yo, you know what, man, if you're not going to give me the money, I don't need you. I'll do it myself. And then after a while, I realized, oh, wait, that was the point.
You got it yourself.
That was actually the point. And now I'm kind of feeling like, I can, but it doesn't make sense for me to go to the people who are waging an active war against me to then say that they're going to compensate me for the damages I received from the war that they continue to wage against me. That feels conflicting to me. What seems important to me is to say, let me build something and figure out how to protect it. And I recognize that in a very real way, as history has shown, they may come for me for doing this. But am I ready to do that work of protecting it? And I think those are very real things that's important to ask ourselves. So from a reparation standpoint, can we prove a case to get it? I don't even think there's a doubt that we can do. If we can't do it right now, we'll be able to do it soon. Right? So I think that's inevitable. Is the United States government in this case, or South American government, going to say, hey, you know what, we're going to break bread with you? France ain't giving up nothing to, you name the African country, right? Portugal ain't giving up nothing. In fact, they'd be bankrupt if they did. So the reality is, I'm not quite sure what that looks like from in a real standpoint, because I think they would bankrupt themselves if they truly paid reparations.
That goes along with what I hear Dr. Greg Carr and Karen Hunter say on Saturdays. The first act of reparations is for us to repair ourselves. That comes with self-determination. Can't be dependent on anyone else to do it for us but us.
So again, let me just say it clear for somebody out there says I said I was against reparations. I'm not against reparations. I'm against for whatever helps my people. And I do believe we could prove a case for it. But I also say on the back end, we should be asking ourselves, you know, am I waiting for that? Or do I still got to go build this thing over here?
Yeah.
I'm building this thing over here. Why am I waiting for that?
Exactly. First act, repair yourself.
Absolutely. Do you know that there was a Liberia bill, I believe it was called the Greater Liberia Act, that was proposed by like a racist governor or something like that back in the day. I have to get the actual information. I can get it to you. But he sent it to the Congress. It was to get as many blacks that want to go back, to give them the money to go back and resettle in Africa and Liberia. I've always seen reparations within the context of repatriation, that the reparations should be used to facilitate our reconnection to Africa and our resources and our identity. That those things right there is mainly what was taken from us: our land, our sense of identity, and the resources that come along with that. Because if we had access to those resources and those connections, we probably wouldn't be in the situations we are, cut off in the projects, cut off in the isolated family units. We would have a different set of circumstances. I've always supported reparations in terms of it being something that I agree that we have a right to. But whether it should be on the agenda of change as the top priority or not, I don't agree with it being at the top without us doing our due diligence.
Right.
Like you said, as a people, to research, put these families back together again, strengthen our case. Because it's not really a case. What court we going to take them to? It's just to strengthen our case in our own moral hearts so that we don't have no sympathy about how we carry out this execution.
Exactly. And to add to that, the other side of it is, because there's always that kind of, if I learn my history, my culture, I will somehow now be empowered to do whatever, right? So now that I've gone to ancestral land, and that has certainly strengthened me as an individual, but it turns out that the internal work I still need to continue to do and the external work I still need to do to build, that ain't changed. So I begin to realize that even if I have my land on the continent of Africa and a community of Africans, if we can't defend it, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And that still becomes a problem. So if we all go back, we kind of in the same boat we were literally before.
Yeah, exactly. We gotta build on both sides. Shout out to Baba Jamu. He keeps chiming in. He corrected me as well. It's a Mississippi governor. Baba Jamu is always saying that we are genetic Pan-Africanists, that we are the only people in the diaspora who have a peculiar identity. And he's always emphasizing that. This brother is also part of our organization and movement. Shout out to you, Baba Jamu. But yeah, Baba Kimo, man, I know whenever you get quiet, you over there thinking
hard, right?
Well, I'm enjoying the conversation, man. It was a much needed conversation. I'm glad that we able to connect with the brothers and everything, man. I just enjoy this. You know me, Chief. I love talking about lineage restoration and all that. Love talking about family history. I'm just so happy that we've had this conversation. And like I say, it's much needed. And I hope everyone is paying attention. And join us, man. Join us in this lineage restoration. It's much needed.
Yeah, man. Brother Dom, you got any last words? Any last questions for the brother?
4 words: research, restore, reclaim, and remember.
Let's go. Let's go, man.
On with it.
Let's go, man. So thank you very much, Brother Togbui. We got a lot of building to do. It's obvious that we're on the same calling. We're on the same wavelength in terms of understanding the call. It is about restoring ourselves, but it's not a selfish calling. We're being called to serve. We're being called to serve without resources, without being paid for it, without being acknowledged for it. This is real, what you call real service, ancestral service. And so, I applaud you. I thank you. And it's good to know that we got another strong warrior out there on the battlefield that's also seeing this war clearly. We understand that reclaiming our identity is actually going to save the future of our people. I just thank you. We said earlier that we have a festival coming up in Orangeburg, South Carolina.
Yes.
We definitely would like to extend the invitation to you. It's March 22nd next year.
Okay.
The good thing is that Orangeburg is one of the places in South Carolina that's been very important, but also the history is largely unknown. It's known, but it's underground because our people don't like to talk outside of our families.
And overshadowed.
And so we know the history. We remember all the stories, but maybe the neighbors don't even talk.
Okay.
So we've been trying to break that ice and get people talking more about what they remember and you know, all of that so that we can have a pathway towards doing some real preservation work. We have cemeteries we have to find and preserve. We have lands that still belong to families that don't even know that they got Orangeburg connections. And so we have a lot of social justice work to do, family justice work to do.
Yeah.
So we're always calling for family reunions, but not just so we can get together and play games.
Yeah.
We get together and study, we get together and research, we get together to get to know each other. And then we can play games and drink some moonshine and some barbecue, eat some barbecue, you know?
Right.
But we got to give these traditions renewed vigor, these homecomings, these family reunions. This genetic genealogy is forcing that to happen. And when you see that there's a reverse migration from the cities to the country now, down south, now is opportune time. It's almost like, you know, our ancestors are creating the way. They're just opening the path for us to, you know, re-identify each other and know what to do with it. The African-American family has been completely pulverized and beat up by that system. That's why I say we're at war. It's not just us. You know what I'm saying? It's other things happening to us, and they're real. It's not, you know, just us needing a scapegoat for our failures or our weaknesses. There's a real assault being made against black men and black women, black girls and black boys, 24/7 in the United States of America, and even in Africa, but it has a different impact, a different effect. So, you know, I really do appreciate you, brother. We have to get you back on the show. And you know, looking forward to continue the conversation. Baba Kimo, we gotta work with this brother, man, concerning the lost and found.
Oh yeah,
but,
that's exactly why I wanted to reach out to him, because I knew I just knew it would be a strong positive connection, you know, and I'm glad. I'm very happy. His story, our story, is all very similar. We're reaching back, we're making these connections, and it's all good, man. I enjoyed this conversation. It was good. So we have extended our invitation to you, and anytime, man, anything we can do. Like Chief said, our project is very similar to yours. The Orangeburg Heritage Lost Project is very similar to what you're doing, and that's what we do, man. That's what we do. So it's all good. Whatever we can do, just let us know.
We do.
Thank you. I thank you profusely for just having me here today and for extending that. If I can say two things real quick. There was a brother I met, older gentleman. His name was Baba Metahochi, and I had opportunity to spend some time with him. And he was a Babalawo. He was an Awo who I went to Nigeria, got initiated there back in the 60s, one of the first African Americans to do it. And he asked the question, who initiated the first Babalawo? And we were all stumped. And he said he initiated himself. And that speaks to this idea that when we need to get things done or do things, we have to empower ourselves to make them happen. That said, and in that context, for anybody who's listening to this conversation, and they've either done some traveling or been reading some books or interacting with people, it's important to share whatever knowledge you have with whomever will listen. Even for myself, sometimes I feel like, you know, well, I'm young. I'm only 59. There's people who are 80 who have done more, and I should be listening to them, and I don't need to step out yet. But the reality is we are all collecting pieces of information, and it all needs to be shared so that we can pool it. And it does not serve our community if we remain quiet. Right. We don't have to have a bunch of medals or stars or whatever to get out there and just have the conversation. Nobody's asking anybody to act like they're the sole authority source. We're simply saying share it. And so I'm glad that you opened up this platform for me to simply share the story and bring the information to people. And I'm glad people chose to listen. So thank y'all, brothers. I'm looking forward to connecting.
Absolutely. Right. Thank you as well, brother. Many roots,
one fanboy.
That's what we say. So for you guys out there, that concludes it. We gave you an extra 30 minutes today because we had a powerhouse in the building. Again, shout out to Baba Jamu and all of our viewers. In 2 weeks time, we'll be back for the last show of the year. We don't have the guests yet, so if you're interested, if you want to come and bless the stage for the end of the year, maybe we can have a throwdown, bring about 3-4 people on, man. Just chop it up real good about, what 2025 has in store for our clan, our tribe, those who are researching these roots and getting back to Africa and getting back to our families. So salute to everybody out there, and y'all have a great day. We'll see you next time. Many roots, one fanboy.
One fanboy.
Jag minns ju den tid du gav mig life billar yo. Nu vill jag kunna ge tillbaka allt jag inte kunnat ge förut. Det finns ingen annan där som kan stå här by my side, oh why. Sättet du rör på det får mig att dö för det baby. För de här yardis, de vill ju bara dra ner oss. Men du är fett och vanlig. Och det jag lägger all min tid, jag vill ha det. Du får mig känna sig